Today I will be discussing a topic that has intrigued me for years, the Electoral College. The problems that the Electoral College brings affects every American, and I will propose my solutions in this video. This video is made with no partisan bias and will not show partisan bias in any form. Winning the presidency with less popular votes than another candidate makes no sense rationally, yet it's happened in 5 U.S. presidential elections, including 2 in the last 18 years. The root of this problem, along with various other issues, is the Electoral College. The Electoral College is the body of electorates that represent each state in the Union and formally vote for the president. These electorates have almost always unanimously voted for the candidate that wins the popular vote in their state, yet they technically do not have to. The 12th Amendment, ratified in 1804, put the Electoral College into action as the system for the U.S. presidential election. Our founding fathers did not believe that the average American was qualified enough to know what the best presidential choice would be, and assumed having a pure popular vote system would be far too hectic. The problems of the Electoral College began to spring up over the years, like a leaky boat. The only difference between the leaky boat and the Electoral College is that after 214 years, nobody has bothered to plug up the leaks. In 1824, 1876, 1888, 2000, 2016, the winner of the presidential election lost the popular vote. 53 out of 58 elections seems like a good percentage, but when there are so many options that yield the winner of the election based on pure popular vote, this is irrational. In the 2016 election, the Electoral College came under mass scrutiny as for a 5th time, the winner of the popular vote lost the election. There may be a recency bias at play here regarding public opinion, yet the faults of the Electoral College have always been there. There are flaws in the mathematics of the Electoral College as well. Larger states such as California or Texas see a significant drop in their electoral vote percentage nationally relative to their population percentage nationally. States with smaller populations such as Vermont or Wyoming see a significant increase in their electoral vote percentage relative to their population percentage. Therefore, less populated states are represented disproportionately more than states with a higher population. Another issue with the Electoral College is that it wastes so many individual votes. For example, there were over 14 million Californians that voted in the 2016 presidential election. If a candidate were to win California by merely one vote, then over 7 million Californians would have their votes completely wasted. As these votes build up across the 50 states, tens of millions of Americans will have their votes wasted. Two major problems stem from this, the first being that the people with opposing political opinions than the majority of their state will not vote in an election, as their vote essentially is pointless. Why would a Democrat in Texas or a Republican in New York bother voting for president, knowing that their candidate won't even win their state? The secondary issue is that these wasted votes are the direct cause of elections where the candidate with the most popular votes may not necessarily win the election. The Founding Fathers did not think that Americans would be the most informed on politics and wouldn't have the sufficient knowledge to make a judgment on any candidate. As radio and television began to progress into the 20th century, Americans were able to hear news and see events as they were happening. In 1960, 70 million Americans watched 4 presidential debates live and were able to hear the points of each candidate. The internet first came into use in 1990 and has only developed and gained more users since. The iPhone came out in 2007, and smartphone technologies have only progressed since. Any American today can simply use their phone to quickly search up every public opinion a candidate has. If the Founding Fathers lived in America today, there is no doubt they would change their opinion about the political incompetence of Americans. With this array of problems comes an array of solutions as well. Some of the solutions could be potential redistricting plans, or even a complete removal of the Electoral College. One solution where the Electoral College can remain intact is a redistribution of electors. I've labeled this as the Maryland Baseline Theorem. With the Electoral College comes an uneven ratio in population to electors in each state. For example, California has 12.14% of the total U.S. population, yet only 10.22% of the electoral vote. Wyoming, on the other hand, has 0.18% of the total U.S. population, but 0.56% of the electoral vote, which is over a 200% increase. While the change in the state's percentages seems small, they do play a large role in swinging elections, giving more power to smaller states. These percentages in each state should be the same. In Maryland, they do. Maryland has 1.86% of the popular vote and 1.86% of the electorates. Is the only state to have even percentages. The population of Maryland, according to 2017 totals, is just over 6 million. The Maryland baseline theorem states that if there is one elector for every 605,522 people in the United States, there would still be 538 electors. They would just be redistributed. This preserves the format of the Electoral College while fixing the mathematical issues. Another possible fix is simply a pure redistribution of electorates into evenly populated districts, but smaller and less populated districts, meaning more electors. While this breaks the traditional 538 electorate order that we have today, smaller districts give more power to the popular vote while still having electors to balance the system. The U.S. population on April 22, 2018 was around 327.5 million. That number can be split up many ways. There could be 100,000 districts of roughly 3,000 people, for example. Since the U.S. population is ever changing, there may need to be a redistribution of districts every few years or so. The benefit of this system is to give much more power to the people to even out the flawed mathematics while also keeping the system of the Electoral College. The last, yet most ambitious solution is getting rid of the Electoral College entirely and having a national popular vote. Voting for president this way is the most pure form of democracy, a system which America was founded upon. Without the Electoral College giving the entirety of each state vote to a certain candidate, there's more incentive for a Democrat in Texas or a Republican in New York to vote. Having a popular vote would ensure millions of votes are not wasted by a state having its electorates automatically vote for the same candidate. The reason that this idea wasn't implemented was that in the late 1700s and early 1800s, many Americans lacked access to media and did not have a clear understanding of presidential candidates and their views. Founding fathers also believed that counting a popular vote would be too hectic and take too long. Lastly, a strong counter-argument is that with a popular vote, too many candidates would run, diluting the amount of votes each candidate would get. This is how Hitler won the 1932 election with 37.3% of the popular vote. There were 6 people running in that election. All these issues are fixable, however. There will be a limit to the amount of candidates being able to run for president, the 2 main parties and potentially 2 smaller parties. With the increase in technology, basically every American has access to any presidential candidate's background and policies. 97% of American households have a television where they can watch televised debates. The American public is more politically knowledgeable than ever, giving further reason to eliminate a system put in place due to political incompetence among Americans. Increases in technology can also assist in totaling popular votes in a speedy manner. Elections have the potential to be done online given that there is extreme monitoring of it. Even if they are in paper, tallying machines can keep track of the totals, precincts can report to the state, and the state can report the totals to the federal government with ease. Even if it takes a day or two to count the votes, it will still be worth it to have an accurate election. Some other counter-arguments towards the push to reform the Electoral College is that it has worked in the vast majority of elections, and the 2016 election bias has caused a spike in unpopular opinion towards the Electoral College. 53 out of 58 elections where the candidate has won the popular vote yet lost the election is about a 91% success rate. However, these elections where the winning presidential candidate lost the popular vote is a complete embarrassment to the American political system. The 2016 election did certainly result in a spike in public opinion about the Electoral College, given how it was the 5th election where the Electoral College was exposed as a flawed system. While I agree with an increased post-election bias swaying public opinion, I personally had similar views of the Electoral College before and after the election. I knew that the Electoral College had flaws, and the results of the Electoral College versus the popular vote in the 2016 election did not swing or magnify my opinion. The faults in the Electoral College are numerous, and it is an institution that needs to change. The faulty mathematics that give smaller states more power is unfair. Each American should be represented equally. It's as simple as that. If somebody is strongly against the modern electoral system, They can support the National Popular Vote movement by viewing their website and petitioning federal legislature about the issue. One can also support the Maryland baseline theorem by advocating for it, as it is not a very well known movement. Well, it will be a monumental task to either change or get rid of the key institution that has decided the winner of the presidential election for over 200 years. By supporting alternative solutions and gaining momentum, there's potential for future change.